A big hello and welcome. It's Kate from Zen Stitching, and I'm so pleased to be joining you today for another one of our artist chats as part of the Making Zen series. Today, I'm so thrilled to be joining Michelle Hamill, who is known as Pardalot Makes on the socials. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Kate. Glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so thrilled that you're here as well. I have been admiring what you create. And yes, your artworks are absolutely stunning. Just a quick browse on Instagram, and there's all kinds of beautiful things from beads to embroidery to felt creatures, which are all just so delightful. I'd love to know, how did you get started? Where did all of this start?
So my dad's a wood turner. He's always made things as his hobby. So after work, he would always be in the shed making things like art things, like functional objects, but things that were beautiful. And my mum's always quilted and knitted, and like we always grew up with hand knitted jumpers and, hand sewn bedspreads and all of that. So I sort of grew up in a house where making is what you do. And so that was my hobby too. I learnt to crochet and knit really young, and I guess it's always, and I always have this drive to be making something. So same for me. At the end of a day working, I went to uni and did teaching, and I'd come home from my teaching job and I would just make, and that's what I would do. I'd have a project that I was doing, and I initially started off with cross stitch, I guess, as my first real embroidery style of work, and then that branched out into black work because I love things that are gridded. Like I love things that are patterns that break the pattern sometimes. So that really appeals to me, to have that gridded structure when you're stitching. And then from black work, I got into more and more freeform embroidery, and I just sort of followed what I enjoyed, what I found. I found the more and more I made, the less and less I wanted to follow a pattern, and the more and more I wanted to make my own thing. And so that's where I am now.
Oh, that's so fascinating. It's so cool to hear that you grew up in a family where things were handmade and there was value on the handmade. So with your father making, wood turning vessels that were functional but also quite beautiful. It's something that I think is so important, to surround yourself with things of beauty, but can
Mm,
also be practical as well.
yes, agreed. Yes. But I also think there's value in making just for the joy of making, or just to make something that makes you happy, and it doesn't
Mm,
necessarily have to have a function. And
mm.
there's joy in the process as well as in the product, I guess. And sometimes there's no product, and that's okay. And it's just the joy of making something.
I love hearing that because from the sounds of things, your mum created for the joy of the creation if she was always
Mm,
knitting or
mm,
creating quilts and
mm.
and that kind of thing. So I can see that that was something that I'm imagining anyway brought her a lot of joy through that creation process.
And definitely, and she enjoyed us wearing the knitted jumpers, like that was part of it. But we had she made so many quilts that she was like giving them away to family. It was just sitting down in winter with a big quilt on her lap, and hand quilting and hand piecing was her thing.
Mm, mm.
But I'm not a quilter, I'm not a quilter. I haven't gone that far yet. That's the
And
deep end.
I like you say yet.
True, true.
Don't rule out any possibility.
No.
That's funny. And well, that's so true, isn't it? Because on the creative journey, you like what you're saying, you started with cross stitch and then you moved to black work and then you're now doing a different style of creating. And it's hard to predict where that's going to take you next, where those interests lie and what fascinations you will explore through that creative process.
Yes, and I find that I am more creative when I'm making. So as I'm making something, I'll start asking what if questions. Oh, what if I didn't stitch that down? What if I left this bit like unfolded? And so the more and more I make, the more and more I start branching out into strange territories. Whereas I think I need that making to forge the creativity in a way. So, and to
Mm.
notice those moments of what if, or to notice those moments of, oh, I like the way this turns out, and I'm going to keep doing more of this. So, yeah, it is unpredictable, but I enjoy that. And sometimes it ends up as a mess that I put aside, and sometimes it ends up in something that makes me happy. So, you just never know.
No, you do never know, and I think that's part of the joy of creating, isn't it? Because there, I mean, sometimes, most of the times, you might have an end point in mind, but sometimes, and I find a lot of the time, that end point is quite different to the actual
Mm,
starting point that I'd started with. Just from, like you say, the hands engaging with the materials and those what if questions that
mm.
only come about from engaging with the material. It's not something that you can preempt.
And sometimes those little, I guess, adventures or experiments can be very small changes too. I find textiles allow you to be adventurous in small ways that are rewarding and allow you to iterate in a sort of a lower risk sort of space than something where you feel like, oh, I'm just going to change the thickness of this thread and see how it looks, or I'm just going to change the background colour of my fabric and see how that changes how my stitching works. And you can make very small changes and enjoy that, I think, which is a really nice medium in lots of ways.
It is. I like the way you describe that because I think in a lot of ways textiles is also quite forgiving as well. If you make a stitch that's not the right length or going in the right direction or a little bit wobbly or a bit wonky, no big deal. Undo it or just keep going and stitch over the top of it.
Exactly. And sometimes it's about, I find that maybe it's because I started in cross stitch, I felt very driven to make all my stitches perfect. And at some point, maybe this is from watching Jude Hill or Karen Rowan, who they both have this very big picture look at stitching and say, so stop looking at every stitch being perfect and look at your overall effect that your stitching has. And I feel like that's a really good thing to remind myself, where I'm driven to be a perfectionist sometimes, and it does. And that can stop you from making if you are afraid of your stitches not being perfect. It can hold you back. And I feel like sometimes it's a matter of, no, look at the overall piece. Not every stitch is perfect, but nobody but you would really know that. And it's the texture of the overall thing or the look of the overall piece that matters in the end, rather than every little stitch being exactly to the right millimetre. So yeah, and just letting those little things be part of the making and part of the hand and part of the personality. A person made this object, and this is an artifact of that.
Yes, absolutely. I always say that stitching is like handwriting. Not two people have the same kind of handwriting, and I feel that stitching is similar in a sense too.
Haven't heard that before. I like it.
Yeah, 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 and even, on a daily basis, my stitching can differ depending on whether I'm calm or
Mm,
rushing or not focusing or feeling in the moment. All these
mm,
kind of things really do affect the way that the stitch is translated onto the fabric as well.
very much.
Yeah, it's quite fun. And so I loved how you were saying earlier that when you're creating, it really does generate a whole lot of tiny what if moments where you're like, oh, what happens if I do this? Or what happens if I do that? Do you, when you're having those what if experiences, do you write them down or do you commit them to memory or do you act on them straight away?
So I think about this a lot, and all of those. If I'm working on a large piece, I'm having a lot of what if thoughts as I'm working. I often keep I call it a side cloth. So a smaller piece of the same fabric I'm working on. So I can try out my ideas as I go. And I keep all of those and make little fabric books of, like, these are my side cloths, my idea. So I have, and I also do a lot of sampling. So I might just suddenly get a little square of fabric out and do a little test and then pop that in my little sample book. So I have, so yes, I do. So sometimes I write down ideas. I have sketchbooks full of little ideas, but sometimes I actually do a little sample and keep that. And sometimes I let that idea brew a little bit as well. So and feel like if it's a really good idea, I'll come back to it. But I do have I keep a big Notion board full of ideas, and I keep a little sketchbooks, and I'm not very good at. I'm not an artist, like I'm not a trained artist. I'm not very good at drawing, but when it's stitching, I can do it. And so I do lots of little drawings of ideas that I have, and little labelled, you know, make this bit crosses and make this bit in silk and make this bit in and see how that looks. So I do keep little records, but mostly I just brew on ideas, unless I'm doing a large piece and I want to try something out. I have a little side cloth that I keep with it. So yeah.
I love that. What a great idea to have a side cloth where you can kind of like instantly check out the idea
Mm,
and see if it's going to work or not, which is a great way, A, of parking the idea, because I sometimes think, those what if moments can be very fleeting. And so if you don't
mm,
act on them straight away, they're gone. So you have a chance to capture that thought, try it out, maybe refine it if you want to, but at least you've kind of got it in a way there. And then you turn them into books. What a lovely idea.
I just realised sometimes I do books. Sometimes I make them into buttons. I've got a little collection of buttons where I've stitched them up. But my dad's a wood turner and he makes these little wooden button forms for me. And so sometimes I turn them into little stitched button forms. But yes, often it's into my little sample books. But yeah,
Yeah. Oh, how
yeah.
delightful. They would be so beautiful to refer back to after doing a bigger piece.
Yes, they are. And I often, or I sometimes I might take photos of them, and I keep copious amounts of photos of. I do a lot of auditioning, I call it, where I've got an idea and I might just take out fabric in that idea and sort of move it around like a fabric collage, and then take a photo of that, and then move things around and take another photo, just to try and capture those ideas and see which idea again makes me go and which, and if I have that moment of then I follow it. So yeah,
Oh, that's a wonderful way of working, to be able to use capture of things. I'm guessing on your phone,
yeah,
just
just on
something
my phone. Yeah.
something quick so that you can try
Mm,
out a whole lot of different ideas and then come back and go and work with the one that makes you say the most. That's what a great idea, because we were talking earlier with another artist, and they were saying they do a similar thing where they'll take a picture of what they're working on, and then because the lens is an objective eye, you can instantly see what needs to happen, whereas sometimes you just don't get that when you're looking through your own eyes. So we love hearing that you use the camera in a sense to choose what you're
mm,
working on as well.
mm. And to record, sometimes I might just pull out some threads to do something completely unrelated and see the three colours together and think, I love those three colours together, and just take a photo just so I remember that. So,
Such a good idea. I know it's those little moments that really do need to be captured because they can be fleeting.
mm, mm.
And your creativity seems to go in all directions. I'd love to know, where do you find your inspiration?
In multiple places. I love the outdoors. I'm a very keen hiker and I live in the mountains. So we do a lot of walking in the mountains, and my partner and I, and I just, the colours of the Australian bush and wildlife and bird life are endlessly fascinating. Just it can be the sky and the clouds and the mountains underneath. It can be just, I was obsessed for a while with lichen and mosses, and so I picked up some little twigs that had lichens and mosses on them and just took lots of photos. And so then I went into this whole, I'm going to make things that are black or very dark brown and pale green and bright green, and that's my color palette for this little period of time, because I got obsessed with this little color palette just because they were what I was seeing when I was walking, and I just loved the organic colours that went together so beautifully. And then, so there's that, but also my actual background is in science and maths. That's my study and work area. And so I'm also endlessly obsessed with patterns and, or like, the interplay of shapes that you see in the environment that are repeated in multiple places. So the veins of a leaf or the veins in a body, and a spiral that's a galaxy, and a spiral that's in the ocean, and a spiral that's in my sink. So I get endless inspiration just from, I guess, those patterns that you see in nature that repeat over and over again. So. And I guess the final thing that really inspires me is colour, which surprised me because when I was started out, I was working with other people's colour palettes, and I could never work out how designers could make things that were so beautiful that were different colours. So when I designed my own things, they were often very monochrome, like white on white or blue on blue. But the more I noticed the colour combinations around me that brought me joy, then the more I've brought that into my work as well. So for example, I'm currently working a lot in blue yellow. Like, I love that very sky blue with a very bright buttery yellow together at the moment. That's my thing. Partly because I read that there's no such colour as blue yellow. And by blue yellow, I mean that if I look up at the sky just as the sun's setting, and I can see it's blue at the top and it's yellow at the horizon, and there's this beautiful gradation of colour between that blue and that yellow, but there's no green in between anywhere. And so that obsessed me for a while, and I made lots of pieces that are blue and yellow in very simple combinations just to play with that colour play, because it just interested me. So
That's such a good point. I love that you've raised that because I am fascinated with color and I love the way colors blend together and your different hues and all that kind of stuff. And like you say, the sky, it's blue and it has the yellows, but there's no green. Oh, I'd never ever thought about that before.
somebody else said it to me, and I was like, what are you talking about? And then I looked at the sky one even and thought, no, they are right. And so I guess then wanted to play with that to see if I could blend blues and yellows in ways that didn't evoke green.
Mm.
And so yeah, I've got a whole series of different pieces that play with that idea of, and I've just got sample books and sample books full of blue and yellow crosses next to each other of different sizes, playing with different cross stitches and different blackwork stitches to see if I can interplay that blue and yellow without screaming green.
Mm.
It's just an interesting textile experiment.
Oh, it completely is, and I'm fascinated too. Do you share any of these examples or samples, I should say, on the socials at all, or are these more just personal that you're currently exploring?
I haven't really tended to share much of my samples. I think I have a little album on my Flickr that's samples, but I'm not sure how big that big that is. So no, I don't think I do have many of my sampling things. It is something I considered in the future, maybe doing a workshop or something around, because I love that idea of taking one idea that you enjoy and then doing lots of iterations on it, like lots of what ifs, either with colour or texture or stitch length or whatever, and playing with that as a guided workshop, because I enjoy it. Maybe other people would enjoy
Oh,
it.
completely.
But
I think just from listening to our conversation today, anybody who's following along will be like, "Oh my goodness, I have to go out and find out more about this," and everybody's going to go and look at the sky.
I hope so. I hope everybody looks at the sky. The sky is beautiful.
It really is. In fact, that reminds me, we had the most beautiful, almost fuchsia pink clouds this morning as the sun was rising.
Lovely.
Just
You'll
so
have to get out some fuchsia pink threads and stitch it.
yes, exactly. And again, because I quite often I marvel at the colors that you see in nature too. And when I try to replicate them with, a paintbrush or something like that, they just look like these gaudy colors. You're like, how is it even possible that nature can pull it off and look so refined and beautiful, let alone when I'm trying to do it. So I think there's a lesson to be learned in that.
Make a little sample. Keeps the idea, and you think, okay, I'll come back to this pink thing later.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I am going to. But just thinking about that kind of stuff, one of the things I absolutely adore about the Australian bush is some of the color contrasts that you see on the gum trees. Like you'll
Mm,
have a red stem and then a
mm,
green gum leaf.
Mm,
And you're starting to see, the whole color theories of green and opposite
mm.
on the color wheel is red and all that kind of stuff, and how it works together. It's quite fascinating.
It is. It is amazing. Um, and in really unexpected ways too, where you'll see like some of the gum trees that have very pale trunks, but then they'll have these streaks of like golden, bronzy, very metallic sort of colours through it that are really inspiring. I have too many photos of tree trunks.
Oh, I don't blame you at all. Well, and then you've also got the tree trunks when they're dry versus the tree trunks when they're wet, because that quite often will
Agreed.
change
Yes.
the saturation
Yeah.
of the color too. It's
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
especially up in the alpine regions where you get those beautiful snow gums and
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah. We spend a lot of time up at Mount Buffalo where they've got so many different beautiful gums up there. So yes, lots of photos of gum and the seasons changes so much and the walk that you take one day is so different from the walk you take the next and the different colours you see and the different skies and you don't have to be in the bush to enjoy that either. Like everywhere in the world, walking down your street, it's different every single day and there are different things to notice. If you're looking for inspiration, if you're looking for colour contrast, it doesn't. I lived for a long time in Melbourne and, well, not a long time, 10 years in Melbourne, and just walking in Melbourne and seeing, everybody talks about it as a very grey city, but there are so many things to see that change seasonally, and all the parks and the streets and even the houses are different when they're wet and dry and sunny and evening and morning, and there's so much to notice even in an urban environment. It doesn't have to be a bush environment.
It's true, isn't it? And it doesn't need to be big, like it could
Mm,
be something small that you notice,
yeah, agreed. Yeah.
or the way that the shadows fall, or all of those kind of things. I think sometimes there's a couple of things, isn't it? It's taking the time to notice, and then I think when you take the time to notice, you then become more aware of it, and it becomes like a muscle that you use, the awareness of the light or the color or the
Yeah,
different things that inspire the creativity.
I agree very much. And I think that going back to your comment earlier about using a phone as a simple tool to take photos, sometimes it is just taking a photo of it, something small like that that you notice, and then you've got it to come back to, sure, but there's something also that makes the moment intentional as well. That I think that rather than just glancing at it and moving on, it's something about, okay, now I'm thinking about that and taking it and framing it so that I get the colours in that I want, and it makes you observe things in different ways. I think if you're going to take a quick little, even if it's just a quick little snap and you hope nobody notices that you're taking the photo of the side of the gutter, it, it makes it a little bit more intentional, I think.
That's a good point, and I love that because yes, quite often I'll see beauty in cracks or things that it's like if anyone sees me taking a picture, they'll be like, "What's he taking a picture?"
That's me.
Yeah. Oh, that's super awesome. Well, it sounds like creative blocks are something that you don't really have to worry about. Do you find that you suffer from creative blocks?
I do a little bit, I think, over winter simply because I spend more time, I think, inside. But also, and maybe this is my mother's fault, I also often get the urge to knit or crochet during winter. Maybe it's sitting at mum's feet when she's at the fire knitting it. Something still calls me back to that. So often over winter, I don't do as much stitching and might just sit and knit or crochet. And I'm not, I don't think I'm a creative knitter or crocheter, so that's often just following a pattern. But I think it also gives me a chance to have a bit of a creative reset as well. And then something will spark my interest again, and I'll be off on a new tangent than I would have been 12 months ago. So,
No, I love hearing that, and I'm completely the same. There's something about as soon as I don't know whether it's the crickets in the autumn, that there's something about the change of the light and the feel of the air. But my fingers are like, right, okay, it's time to get knitting.
mm, and
What am I going to
I
knit
just,
next?
like, yeah, exactly. And my family have way too many scarves and beanies and everything. I mean, I've got 20 scarves. It's ridiculous, but I just need to make. Need to keep making even if I'm not feeling inspired. Like I still need to make every day. I need to make.
Do you think it's the activity of the fingers that is the need to make, or is it
Yes.
the kind of like the reset, like when you sit down there and do some knitting or some stitching or whatever it is, there's kind of like a stillness that um is there that we tap
Yes.
into.
Agreed. And I think it's partly the stillness, and it's partly the repetitive nature of it. Partly the sort of almost breathe in, breathe out nature of it that you get. That's very calming
Mm,
and reset. It gives you that reset, and also it still requires you to be in the moment. You still need to pay attention to what's happening so you don't drop a stitch but also it allows you to listen to the world around you and sort of, I don't know, it's a different sort of meditative process. I think a different sort of mindfulness that you get when you're knitting or crocheting. I mean, it shares a lot with embroidery and stitching and other textile arts, but there's something about that repetition that I find very, very calming.
mm, absolutely. And I'm thinking as well, like what you're saying, it's over winter, you get drawn to the knitting and the crochet and the making of that way. And it's almost like you're naturally following the seasons in a sense, because
Mm,
over winter the earth kind of, it's
slows
replenishing
down.
and
Mm,
recharging and slowing down in anticipation for another spring and
mm,
a summer, that kind of thing. So it sounds like your creativity kind of follows that same kind of general flow.
ebb and flow, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, which is lovely too, because also sometimes you don't want to be outside in the middle of winter. So
True.
even though it is lovely most of the time, if you're rugged up warm and all that kind of stuff, sometimes it's just nice to be inside and cozy. And there's
It
something
is.
about knitting or crocheting that kind of goes hand in hand with that kind of feeling. And I'm wondering, with your creative processes, do you have any rituals or habits that kind of help you get into the creative flow?
It's a good question. I think I often, even though I said I don't draw, I often start by drawing. Now I'm thinking about it. And more that's the case where if I have an idea, I want to commit it to paper, even if it's just to play with it, and to make it playful. And then I'll take it into fabric. And I'm just thinking about some of the 3D embroidery work that I've done. Even that, I'll start with paper, with cutting out paper and making paper versions of what I want to stitch, the 3D object that I want to make. And so I guess that's it's not a ritual, I guess, in terms of starting the process, but it is something that I'm tending to do more and more as part of my practice, is start with a paper or a drawn version of what I want to stitch. And I think partly, I mean, fabric and threads are expensive, and so it's nice to be able to make a cheap version of something and see at least if the idea might have merit before I then commit to buying the fabric and the threads, or pulling more and more these days, pulling out of my stash the fabric and the threads and then taking it to the next step.
Mhm. And do you as part of that, it's fascinating to hear that the drawing is coming in, even though that you're saying that you aren't a drawer. I'm sure you are, because so long as you can get those ideas down
Mm,
and they mean something to you, then it's a drawing, and it's all good.
indeed. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm thinking of the drawing less these days as something that's scary that artists do, and more about just capturing ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good way of thinking about it. So you start with the drawing. Would you say that maybe part of your creative practice, would you make a cup of tea, or do you put on music, or do you have a space in your house where you like to go and create? Are there any kind of little rituals like that around making that you have?
Um, I do drink a lot of tea, but I don't tend to necessarily. Don't wouldn't necessarily drink tea while I'm stitching. I try not to do that. Don't ask me why. Um, there's never been any accidents, never. Um, I have a space that I work. My partner works as he's a software person. He does programming, and we have a shared office space. And so I'm sitting in the same room as him as I work, and he gets drawn into the, what do you think about what do you think about this? What about this? And he tries to be very diplomatic and say, no, you need to make those decisions. Yes, yes, but which one do you like better? Do you have people that you pester and say, yes, yes, but which one do you like better?
Oh, all the time.
And they try to say, look, they're both nice. No, 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 tell me which one's the better one. Um, I'm trying to get better at that and follow my own creative instincts, but sometimes you just need a second opinion.
Sometimes it's nice just to bounce the idea around. Quite often,
Yes,
if I'm asking the question and I don't hear the answer that I want to hear, I'll go off and do it anyway, kind of thing. So,
true, true.
it's
Um,
part
but
about.
I don't think I have any little rituals that calm me down before I work. I think I just need to keep doing it. I think I'm driven to make for some reason. So yes, it just happens.
Well, that's kind of is a nice lead in because I was about to ask how you balance making art with the demands of your everyday life.
Yes, so that can be challenging. I work from home, which helps, and I'm in education, and I currently work and have been working for quite a few years now as an education consultant, writer, content manager person. And I was working part-time for a while, and that was easier because I dedicated a couple of days, but I'm back at full time again, and I still work from home, so I don't have to juggle the commute, but I just find that if I have ideas during the day, it's part of having a sketchbook. At least I can jot down ideas during the day if I'm working. And no, after work, and then after, I usually don't get to those things until after dinner. So maybe there is a after dinner and then a cup of tea and then getting back to the in creative work. So maybe there is a little ritual in there, and I just don't I just don't realise. But um, I did find going back to work full time a bit hard because of that, because I was used to having this time that I set aside each week as creative time. And I'm a bit more tired now during the weekends than I was when I wasn't working full time. So it's a balance, and I think I'm getting better at it. And this isn't forever. I'll have plenty of time to get back to my stitching at some point.
Yeah.
But I guess one of the other things I do is, partly this is possibly because of my education background, part of the joy of doing this is sharing some of this with other people, and via doing little workshops or tutorials or making patterns or templates or whatever that I can share with other people, then that feels like it's another way of sharing that creativity and being creative. And so I think that helps me balance my work life a little bit more, because I feel like I'm getting more out of my creative time by being creative with other people, I guess.
Yes, that connection with others, I think, is so important. Whether you're sharing ideas or teaching ideas or just seeing how other people are doing things as well. I think it's such a wonderful community, the textile community online.
There was somebody at one point, when they realised that I was into embroidery, said, "Oh, but surely that's a dying art form." And I said, I don't think you realise how much the internet has connected us, like how much it's like a renaissance, it's a revival, it's a growing creative area, because none of us feel like we're just doing this little thing by ourselves anymore, and we're all inspired by each other, and it's a community, and it's not a dying art form. If anything, the internet has enlivened this space so much.
Yes, that's so true. And you raised a couple of good points there because, quite often the creation and particularly textiles, it's generally considered, I guess you'd say, a domestic craft. So you do it at home in the private of your own space. It's not like you
Mm,
see very many people taking it out
mm,
into the public's realms. So it is very easy to kind of think that, well, I guess not many people are doing it. But you're right. because of the way social media works, it really has blossomed,
Mm.
and it's such a beautiful space to be part of. I think just to see what people are doing and how they're doing it, and getting that inspiration, and sharing the inspiration as well.
It's very empowering too for people who have this skill set that may not be valued by their friends or their family, to know, to have other people across the world look at your work and say, yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing that we can make these things.
That's so true. That's so true. Gosh, I kind of forget about just how amazing the internet is in doing things like that, because I used to be a closet knitter. 'Cause when I was growing up, knitting was uncool,
Mm-hmm.
and you definitely didn't do it in public. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd race home after school, and I'd get home and I'd do a couple of stitches, and it was all good. But it's not something that you'd talk about at school,
With your
whereas
friends, yeah.
thankfully these days it's changed a little bit.
Mm, mm. But also, you'd just be on TikTok showing people your knitting, wouldn't you?
It's a totally different environment now, thank goodness. And
Thank
my goodness,
goodness.
yes, if someone said to me, "Oh, stitching's a dying art," I'd probably, like you, would be like, "Oh no, it's far from it. Thank
I'm
goodness."
aghast. I'm aghast.
And Michelle, I know you're always working and exploring ideas. What is something that you're currently working on at the moment that's bringing you joy?
Well, at the moment I'm inspired by, again, this is by the area that I'm in. There are a lot of beautiful birds, and so I've been making um, little, I don't have any to show you, but little birds that stand up with little wire feet. And I don't have any to show you because we have a lovely little shop in town where I've been selling them. And but so I've been inspired by that, and that's sort of a starting point. And then I've been making bee tools. I don't know if you've seen little stitched beetles. Can you see?
Oh,
It's a bit creepy crawly, that one. What about a cuter one? So, and they're just stitched little
wow.
beetles. But I don't have any birds to show you, but these are little beetles. So
And
I, sorry.
and the birds would be kind of similar, like
The
same
birds are,
construction, and they
no, the birds are stand up and have little wire claw feet. And as I started making those, and because we're surrounded by parrots, we've got like king parrots and rosellas and galahs and cockatoos, and they've got so much character and they're so raucous and crazy. So I've just been really inspired by that. So I started making little bird brooches, and that's the sort of thing we'll be doing for our workshop. Like these little guys, little little
oh look,
little little birds.
so
So
gorgeous.
I have a whole range of those, and then I got little brooches. But then I started drawing these silly faces for the birds, and I got really inspired, and so I ended up doing koalas and rabbits and cats and wombats, and also then I started doing little children's faces, and again this has come back to the drawing. I just started drawing all of these silly little faces in all sorts of different styles. So I've if you asked me 12 months ago if I was doing this, I would have said no, because I was doing beadwork, 3D beadwork forms 12 months ago is my thing. So, but yes, this has been bringing me joy, and I think it's just because I make them and they make me laugh. Like they're just they're just so silly. It's just like they make me happy, and so I don't know. I now have 70 brooches, which are too
Oh,
many,
that's so
but
fun.
yes. I've just been having too much fun. So I don't know. That's my latest crazy thing. And if I show them to somebody and they make them laugh, then I feel like I've succeeded.
Absolutely. Do you wear them? Do you wear them as part of your?
I do, but working from home, I find that and living in a small town rather than living in the big city, I find that I don't tend to go out as much either. So I don't tend to adorn myself as much as I used to. Beadwork is a huge hobby for me. I do a lot of beadwork, and I basically never wear any of it anymore. It's very sad.
Well, sometimes it doesn't hurt to simplify, and I think maybe you might need a jacket with all of your brooches on. That would
Maybe I
be
do. Maybe I do. Maybe I
yes.
need to stitch myself a jacket.
I do love the sound of that, and I really love the connection there. How the Australian bush and the creatures within it really do inspire you. And you were saying that your Instagram name has a certain meaning and relevance. Would you like to share what that is?
Yeah, so Pardalote, I've gone by Pardalote online for a number of years, and that's partly because I'm originally from Tasmania, and there's a bird there that's endangered called the 40-spotted pardalote, and it's a tiny, tiny, tiny little bird. They're tiny little birds, and there's a whole range of different little pardalote birds that live in Australia. But I was super inspired by them because they're small, and I'm small too, and they just flit from tree to tree. Like you can stand and watch these little birds and they just dart around. And I feel like that's a bit me, darting around from idea to idea. This tiny little bird full of energy, lots of ideas, never settles down. So I called myself Pardalote. So and then my website and my handle about the things I made, I started calling Pardalote Makes. So that's
Mm.
me.
Oh, that's delightful. I just love hearing that. And that's such a beautiful analogy. And I've never heard of them before, so I'm going to have to go and
You
look them
have to
up.
look them
And
up. You would have some pardalotes in New South Wales. You would probably have spotted pardalotes and striated pardalotes in New South Wales.
mm, probably they had them right under my nose, and I've never even noticed. Oh, Michelle, thank you so much for your time today. It's been so lovely talking to you. I
Fantastic.
love hearing your creative processes and your creative journeys, particularly the blue yellow of the sky. That's so cool. And thank you again for being part of Making Zen. I'm so thrilled that you're going to be sharing your creativity with us and all of the lovely Making Zen people.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you for joining me in this creative journey. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And if you'd like to learn more about Making Zen, please check out the links below where you can find out all about the workshops, creativity, community, and all that kind of good stuff. Wishing you many happy hours of stitching.